The sutta tonight is the Mahavedalla Sutta, the greater series of questions and answers. Sutta number 43, if you want to look it up. Thus as I heard on one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Sawati in Jeta's Grove, Anathan Bandita's park. Then, when it was evening, the Venerable Mahakohita rose from meditation, went to the Venerable Sariputta, and exchanged greetings with him. Now, Venerable Mahakohita had students with him, so did Sariputta. He was a very well-known arahat, and he was one of the 80 special arahats. And he was foremost in meditation. He was always sitting in meditation, no matter whenever you looked for him, you just looked to where he would meditate. That was it. So he knew the answers to these questions, but he was asking for his students. So he went to the Venerable Sariputta and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and said to the Venerable Sariputta, "One who is unwise, one who is unwise is said, friend, with reference to what was this said, one who is unwise. One does not wisely understand. One does not wisely understand, friend. That's why it is said one who is unwise. And what does one not wisely understand? One does not wisely understand. This is suffering." Now we're going to be going through the Noble Truths, but actually he's talking about dependent origination. Okay. The first thing that's mentioned is, let's say he starts at aging and death. Now that is the first noble truth. That is the suffering. Then one does not wisely understand. This is the origin of suffering. What's the cause of suffering? What's the cause of aging and death? It's craving, but it's also birth. Right? One does not wisely understand. This is the cessation of suffering. What is the cessation of suffering? Come on. 6 hours. Right effort is the cessation of suffering. One does not wisely understand. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One does not wisely understand. One does not wisely understand, friend. That's why it is said, one who is unwise. Saying, "Good friend," the Venerable Mahakohita delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Sariputta's words. Then he asked him a further question. One who is wise is said, friend, with reference to what was this say? One who is wise. One wisely understands. One wisely understands, friend. That's why it is said one who is wise. What does one wisely understand? One wisely understands this is suffering. Each of the links is suffering. Okay? One wisely understands this is the origin of suffering. One wisely understands this is the cessation of suffering. One wisely understands this is a way leading to the cessation of suffering. One wisely understands. One wisely understands, friend. That's why it is said one who is wise. Consciousness. Consciousness is said, friend, with reference to what is consciousness said. It cognizes. It cognizes. What does cognize mean? It means that you see in the present as it arises. You see what it is. That's why consciousness is said. What does it cognize? It cognizes this is pleasant. It cognizes this is painful. It cognizes this is neither painful nor pleasant. It cognizes. It cognizes. That is why consciousness is said. Wisdom and consciousness, friend. Are these states conjoined or disjoint? And is it possible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them? Wisdom and consciousness, friend, these states are conjoined, not disjoint. And it is impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. For what one wisely understands, that one cognizes. And what one cognizes, that one wisely understands. That is why these states are conjoined, not disjoint. And it's impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. What is the difference, friend, between wisdom and consciousness? These states that are conjoined, not disjoint. The difference, friend, between wisdom and consciousness. Now listen closely. These states that are conjoined, not disjoined, is this. Wisdom is to be developed. Consciousness is to be fully understood. Got it? So you develop being able to see the links of dependent origination. You do that by seeing it over and over and over and over again. And consciousness is to be fully understood. You cognize what you're seeing. Okay? Feeling. Feeling is said, friend, with reference to what is feeling said. It feels. It feels, friend. That's why feeling is said. What does it feel? It feels pleasure. It feels pain. It feels neither pain nor pleasure. It feels, friend. That's why feeling is said. Perception. Perception is said, friend, with reference to what is perception said. It perceives. It perceives, friend. That's why perception is said. What does it perceive? Now, perception is a part of the mind that names things. This is a glass. This is a plastic glass, but it's a glass. Now, your perception is a part of the mind that put that name on it. Perception is the very beginning of concepts. Okay? We only think in concepts. This is a book. Where is a book? Is it the cover? Is it the pages? Is it the binding? Where is the book? The book is a concept made up of a lot of little things put together to make this concept up. So we're always continually thinking in concepts. Nibbana is the lack of concepts. No more concepts. So, what does it perceive? It perceives blue, it perceives yellow, it perceives red, it perceives white. Those are just the colors of the Buddhist flag. But these are concepts. Now, perception has memory in it too. That's why you look at this and you say, that is a cup. Why? Because you've seen cups before. That's why you remember what this is. It perceives, friend, that's why perception is said. Now, listen closely. Perception, feeling, and consciousness, friend, are these states conjoined or disjoined? And is it possible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them? Feeling, perception, and consciousness, friend, these states are conjoined, not disjoined. And it's impossible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them. Listen closely. For what one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one cognizes. Now, an interesting thing when you're talking about the 5 aggregates. You got feeling, perception, and consciousness. These 3 are conjoined. You have formations and body. So when we're talking about 5 aggregates, we're actually just talking about 3 aggregates, because the others are conjoined together. That is why these states are conjoined, not disjoined, and it's impossible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them. Okay. Knowable by mind alone. Now, almost all of you are in the realm of mind. I'm tired of hearing about body when you're not supposed to be paying attention to it. Okay? You're in a mental realm. If you're paying attention to your body, you're not on your object of meditation. So stop talking to me about your body, please. Friend, what can be known by purified mind consciousness, released from the 5 faculties? Friend, by purified mind consciousness, released from the 5 faculties, the base of infinite space can be known thus. Space is infinite. The base of infinite consciousness can be known thus. Consciousness is infinite. Stay on your object of meditation. And the base of nothingness can be known thus. There is nothing. Friend, with what does one understand a state that can be known? Interesting question. Friend, one understands a state that can be known with the eye of wisdom, not the eye of body. Okay? I don't care if you have meditation pain. It's mental pain. It's not physical pain. You need to be able to back off and allow that sensation to be there by itself. It is a mental pain. It's not physical at all. So I don't want to hear about physical pains. Not anymore. Everybody here is advanced enough that you're in mental realms. Okay? Friend, what is the purpose of wisdom? The purpose of wisdom, friend, is direct knowledge. Its purpose is full understanding. Its purpose is abandoning. Now, one of the major things that is kind of talked about quite a bit, but nobody really truly understands anatta. You hear a lot of talk with straight vipassana people, anicca, dukkha, anatta, yeah. It's only surface knowledge that they're talking about. When you get to see the realm of infinite consciousness, and you see individual consciousnesses arise and pass away very, very quickly. You're seeing impermanence up close and personal. You're seeing how everything changes so fast. Now, your whole life you've been thinking that when you see me and you hear me talking, that it's happening at the same time. but it's not. Consciousnesses are rising and passing away. The sound consciousness and the sight consciousness, they don't happen at the same time. These are arising and passing away very, very quickly. So you are seeing really closely how everything is impermanent. And because things are impermanent, they are a form of suffering. Now, the last part of this, the quote anatta, that everybody says is not self, which I really don't like. I call it the impersonal nature of everything. There's no me, there's no mind, there's no controller. Right? When you see individual consciousnesses arise and pass away, are you in control of that? Did you ask that to come up? It is part of an impersonal process that happens because conditions are right for it to occur. It's a real thing. And as you become more and more aware of the impersonal process of everything, and you start seeing that the links of dependent origination are all impersonal, you start really understanding what the Buddha was teaching us. There's nothing in this world that is personal. There's no physical, there's no mental realm that's personal. These are all conditional. That's why Sati, son of a fisherman, was so far off when he was talking about consciousness running from this lifetime to that lifetime. No. Everything is conditional, and it is part of a process. It's an impersonal process. Everything is. What's the cause of suffering? Craving. What does that mean? Craving is the I like, I don't like. That's the very beginning of taking things personally. And when you let go of that false belief in a personal self, there's real freedom in that. But this is something that you have to see for yourself. Okay? It's not a philosophy. This is a reality. Now we're going to go on to some right view. Friend, how many conditions are there for the arising of right view? Friend, there are two conditions for the arising of right view. The voice of another and wise attention. You can't develop this by doing it on your own. What voice are we talking about here? It's not my voice. It's the Buddha's voice. That's why I choose to read this stuff to you instead of just freelance and just talk about Dhamma. Because I want you to understand, it's not my ideas. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just reciting what the Buddha is saying. And because you pay close attention, you give ear, you are teaching yourself that this is the correct path. You get to see it for yourself. So you'll never have any doubt as to what the correct path is. It really does work. These are the two conditions for the arising of right view. How many factors is right view assisted when it has deliverance of mind for its path, deliverance of mind for its path and fruition, when it has deliverance by wisdom for its path, deliverance by wisdom for its path and fruition. Friend, right view is assisted by 5 factors. When it has deliverance of mind for its path, deliverance of mind for its path and fruition. When it has deliverance by wisdom for its path, and deliverance by wisdom for its path and fruition. Here, friend, right view is assisted by keeping your precepts, virtue, learning, discussion, serenity, calmness of mind, and insight. Now, the insight that we're talking about here is the insights that you have when you start recognizing more about how the links of descent and origination work. Those are the true insights. It doesn't have anything to do with Mahasi Sayadaw's made-up insights. And he did make them up. He got some of them from the Visuddhimagga, but he also added a bunch. Right view, assisted by these 5 factors, has deliverance of mind for its path, deliverance of mind for its path and fruition. It has deliverance by wisdom for its path, deliverance by wisdom for its path and fruition. Friend, how many kinds of being are there? There are these 3 kinds of being, friend. Sense sphere being. It means a gross material realm that we're in. Fine material being. That means the Devalokas, heavenly realms. And the immaterial being. That means the mental realms. Now, the other day I started talking about Mahakappas. Okay, just to let you know what kind of merit we are talking about by doing this kind of meditation. When you experience the realm of infinite space, if you never go any higher, you are going to be reborn in a Brahmaloka that lasts for 20,000 Mahakappas. Long time. It is a pleasurable realm. If you experience the realm of infinite consciousness and you never go any higher, when you die, you will be reborn in a realm that lasts for 40,000 Mahakapas. If you get to the realm of nothingness, which a lot of you are experiencing now, you get to the realm of nothingness, if you don't go any higher and you die, you're going to a realm that lasts for 60,000 Mahakapas. If you go to neither perception nor non-perception, which some of you are starting to experience now, you don't go any higher and you die, you're going to be reborn in a realm that lasts for 84,000 Mahakapas. We're talking about the expansions and contractions of the universe. We're talking about being in a pleasurable realm for really, really long periods of time. So, and I push you to go beyond that, so you can experience Nibbana. That is beyond both all of the sense spheres. It's beyond everything. Nibbana helps you to get off of the wheel of samsara, so you don't have birth, death happening continually. You don't have that suffering. When you experience Nibbana and you become a Sotapanna, you have given up an entire ocean of suffering. You're never going to be reborn less than a human being. If you don't continue on with the meditation, the most lifetimes you're going to experience is 7. Before you become an Arahat and get off of the wheel of samsara. Now some people, they want to know, well, what is it like being an Arahat? When you die, what happens? In the Anguttara Nikaya, there's a little story about, suppose you were down at the beach and you made a sand castle. And then a wave came and washed it away. You can never put together that same sandcastle with every grain of sand in exactly the right place. It's impossible. When an Arahat dies, there is nothing holding that person together anymore. All of the aggregates disappear. There is no more craving, holding things together, causing rebirth. And the Buddha said that that was a pretty pleasurable realm, and I kind of agree with it. But it's mentally I agree with it. I'm not an Arahat. Thank you very much. Don't be thinking I am. I don't talk about what I have experienced in my own meditation very often. I give you some general stories, but I don't tell you the specifics, because that's my business, not yours. If you do experience Nibbana, it is not wise to talk about that experience with anybody else unless they have the same experience. Now, I've had some students that they went to their monk teachers and started talking about the experience of Nibbana and how great it is. And the teachers actually, they told them that they didn't know what they were talking about. They said, you're wrong. It doesn't happen like that. It's not even close. They don't know. Many monks just study. They have no direct experience. In the Third Buddhist Council, they tried to figure out, this was about 200 years after the Buddha died, 250 years roughly. They got together and they started going, what should we really emphasize most? Should we emphasize the practice of meditation, or should we emphasize the suttas and the memorizing of all of the Buddha's teaching? And when they decided what should be done by monks, it was study and memorizing the suttas and the Buddha's teaching. It didn't have much to do with meditation itself. That's what they decided. They thought that was the way to keep the Buddha's teaching going the longest. So, friend, how is renewal of being in the future generated? How do you generate becoming in the future? Friend, renewal of being in the future is generated through the delighting in this and that on the part of beings who are hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. Two biggies. You hear me talk mostly about craving, not so much ignorance. What is ignorance? It's ignoring how the links of dependent origination actually work. And that's what's happening with a lot of people that are practicing straight meditation. They're practicing the Buddha's meditation, they think, but they are ignoring how the links actually work. So many people are involved in anicca, dukkha, anatta. One of the things that it says in the Mahavedalla, it says that you can see one or all of the characteristics of existence without ever seeing the links of dependent origination. But when you see the links of dependent origination, you see all of the characteristics of existence. Because you're seeing how things are continually changing very quickly. You're seeing how everything is a form of suffering. And you're starting to see more and more now the impersonal nature of everything. Because you're starting to understand the links of dependent origination. We'll get more into that a little later. Friend, how is renewal of being in the future not generated? With the fading away of ignorance, with the arising of true knowledge, with the cessation of craving, renewal of being in the future is not generated. So what's that say? Have a 6R more, guys. Right? You have to continually 6R. So that way you stop taking things personally. It doesn't matter if it's fear or anxiety or sadness or anger. Whatever arises, the truth is, it's all impersonal. It's not me, it's not mine. So, you have to let go of that tension and tightness caused by that craving when it arises. And my teacher of 2 years was a very famous Burmese scholar. And he saw my real nature. So he reminded me many times. Patience leads to Nibbana. And I'm patient as long as I get what I want when I want it. I'm real patient then. Oh, but why doesn't it happen now? So even if you have the same thing coming up over and over again, you have fear, anxiety, or dislike, if you keep 6Ring and be patient with it and not make a big deal out of it in your mind, it will start to fade away by itself. And it will disappear. That's a promise. That's a promise by the Buddha. So, with the fading away of ignorance, in other words, you're being able to see everything in life as part of a process, nothing to be attached to. And the cessation of craving, renewal of being in the future is not generated. What relief that is. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the first jhana. Friend, what is the first jhana? Here, friend, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a monk enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and examining thought, with joy and happiness born of seclusion. This is called the first jhana. Friend, how many factors does the first jhana have? Friend, the first jhana has 5 factors. Here, when a monk has entered upon the first jhana, there occur thinking, examining thought, joy, happiness, and unification of mind. That is how the first jhana has 5 factors. Friend, how many factors are abandoned in the first jhana? Interesting question. And how many factors are possessed? Friend, in the first jhana, 5 factors are abandoned and 5 factors are possessed. Here, when a person is entered upon the first jhana, sensual desire is abandoned. Ill will is abandoned. Sloth and torpor are abandoned. Restlessness and anxiety are abandoned. Doubt is abandoned. So the 5 hindrances, when you're in the jhana, will not arise. But when your mindfulness becomes weak, guess who comes to visit? One of your favorites. Oh, restlessness, my mind is so busy. I talked to you last night about what to do. Are you practicing it? Huh? When your mind has restlessness in it, what are you supposed to do? Tell me.
Tranquilize.
Tranquilize.
Radiate equanimity.
Radiate equanimity. That works. Quite often, thoughts will come up, but they're not strong enough to pull your attention away from your object of meditation. Ignore those. That is not restlessness. Ignore it. Stay on your object of meditation. Then these thoughts will just fade away by themselves. How many times do you have to hear me say this stuff before you're going to pay attention to it? See, that's my patience. I have to keep saying the same thing over and over again until you hear it. And what do you do with that meditation pain that arises? What are you supposed to do with it? How many times have you heard me say it? What do you do with meditation pain? Let it be there by itself. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't try to control it. Don't try to make it go away. Don't run away from it. Oh, but that pain in my backside hurts so much. I just had to get up. Who had to get up? Who didn't like it? Who's causing themselves more and more suffering? You're doing it to yourself. Honestly, we all cause our own suffering. We can't blame anybody else for our suffering. We're doing it to ourselves. So we have to teach ourselves to stop doing it. Okay? Then you're going to start giggling more. You're going to start laughing more. You're going to have more contentment in your life. But it's so much easier to blame somebody else for my pain. Yeah.
Is it okay to find yourself giggling and laughing when that pain's there in the actual practice?
Quietly. The fastest way I know of to let go of any kind of hindrance is to laugh with yourself. Yeah.
Well, if you get bite by ants, it's really got bite sometimes. And I just couldn't see it's already because it's really, really hurt. Fire ants, the small ants.
It's time to fix it. Get up, shake the sheet out, get the chalk, put it around the bed, try again with the mosquito net and see what happens.
When I was in Burma, I was starting to sit for longer and longer periods of time. And I've heard the story about ants. I was sitting there and I felt all these ants crawling all over. And I thought, okay. And they were biting, but I just relaxed into it. After about an hour, I decided that this was really a big hindrance. So I looked down and I couldn't even see the color of my skin. There was so many ants on me. So what did I do? Did I just close my eyes and say, okay, we'll just note this? No, I got up and I shook the ants off and said, guys, you got to go someplace else. Leave me alone. Yeah.
Generally, when you don't move your body, when you're not moving our body, so ants, they roam around but they don't bite because it's like any another object.
Well,
but if you're moving,
if you're lucky, they won't bite. But some of them, they're nasty little buggers. And they do bite. The smaller they are, the bigger their bite, it seems. But when I was in Burma, we had Burma is right next door to China. And the Chinese have developed this kind of chalk that really does work well. So I put this chalk around me and I watched what would happen when the ants started coming up. And they would get right up to that chalk and they would turn around and go away. So I thought, this is great. And then they turned around and they went away and they climbed up the walls and they climbed on the ceiling and then they would dive bomb and land on me. So I had, that's what monks have robes for, cover up. That is one of the things that robes are used for, to get mosquitoes and gadflies and ants so that they won't bother you. When I first became a monk, I went to Thailand. And I was sitting out in the forest and these ants were really fierce. And I told this Thai monk about it and he said, oh, I know how you can take care of that. Get some sugar and put it all around you. Like I'm going to do that. I suggested that I wanted to see him do that first. And he didn't do it. So you have to use your head. In Burma, they didn't have mosquito netting. Everything was pretty much open. And every day from about 6:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock in the morning, mosquitoes would come out, and they were fierce. And then in the evening from about the same time, about 6:30, till about 8 o'clock, mosquitoes would come out. And we didn't have fans. So what do you do? No problem.
Don't do meditation at that time.
Yes, I did meditation at that time. But I didn't get bit by mosquitoes. That's what monks do for keeping insects off. It works pretty well. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the 5 faculties. Friend, these 5 faculties each have a separate field, a separate domain, and do not experience each other's field and domain. That is the eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty. You don't taste with your ear. Right? There's a different field and a different domain. You don't see with your tongue. That's what this is talking about. Now these 5 faculties, each having a separate field and a separate domain, not experiencing each other's field and domain, what is their resort? What experiences these fields and domains? Friend, these 5 faculties, each having a separate field and a separate domain, do not experience each other's field and domain. That is the eye faculty, ear faculty, nose faculty, tongue faculty, and body faculty. Now these 5 faculties, each having a separate field and a separate domain, not experiencing each other's field and domain, have mind as their resort. And mind experiences their fields and domains. Friend, as to these 5 faculties, that is the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body faculty, what do these 5 faculties stand in dependence on? Friend, as to these 5 faculties, that is the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, these 5 faculties stand in dependence on vitality. Friend, what does vitality stand in dependence on? Vitality stands in dependence on heat. Friend, what does heat stand in dependence on? You're going to love this answer. Heat stands in dependence on vitality. Just now, friend, we understood the Venerable Sariputta to have said vitality stands in dependence on heat. And now we understand him to say heat stands in dependence on vitality. how should the meaning of this statement be regarded? Reasonable question, I think. In that case, friend, I shall give you a simile, for some wise men here understand the meaning of a statement by means of a simile. Just as when an oil lamp is burning, its radiance is seen in dependence on its flame, and its flame is seen in dependence on its radiance. Got it? So too, vitality stands in dependence on heat, and heat stands in dependence on vitality. Okay? Friend, are vital formations things that can be felt, or are vital formations one thing and things that can be felt another? Vital formations, friend, are not things that can be felt. If vital formations were things that can be felt, then a monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness would not be seen to emerge from it. Because vital formations are one thing and things that can be felt another. Now think about this. The cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. That means you can't feel anything. Okay? If you don't have any consciousness, there is no feeling. There is no perception. A monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness can be seen to emerge from it by making a determination that they're going to sit in this state for such a period of time. When they come out, then they have that consciousness arising again. Now, when you get to a certain place in your meditation, you're going to get to a place where everything just stops by itself. You won't even know that you're in that state until you come out of that state. When you come out of that state, you feel a very strong relief. Like somebody took a big weight off of your shoulders. You can see very quickly little tiny bubbles, little tiny movements, very fast. These are the links of dependent origination. And right after that, very strong joy arises. That is the attainment of Nibbana. That's how it happens. The tricky part is you can't want it to happen. That's called longing, and that's the fastest way to stop things from happening that I know of. Oh, but I've been sitting for so many years, I've been doing this meditation for so long. When am I going to be able to attain Nibbana? You're not, as far as you as if you're going to keep having those kind of thoughts. Now, you've heard me say this, and I'm serious when I say it. And you have to do it sincerely. You have to tell yourself, I don't care what happens next. It doesn't matter what happens next. My job is only to observe. That's it. When you're sincere with that, you won't have any longing arise. And your chances of attaining Nibbana are pretty good. Okay? Yeah.
Does every experience of cessation of perception and feeling, is the experience of Nibbana always something that follows from that?
Yes. That is still part of the mundane Nibbana. It is not the super-mundane. The super-mundane is when you see the links of dependent origination. And then that joy arises. That joy arises because you have experienced Nibbana. It's more understanding how this process works.
But is that a natural consequence of
Yes,
being...
a very natural concept.
I mean a natural...
It happens by itself.
As a consequence of coming out of cessation of perception and feeling.
Well, it happens pretty quick. And it's kind of funny because I've had students and I congratulate them for attaining Nibbana and they say, really? Is that all? Well, you just gave up an ocean of suffering. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. Is that all? Now, there's something that does happen for some people, and that is they lose their mindfulness and they get into what is called sloth and torpor. And that is a state that's very similar to what I'm talking about with the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. But when you come out of that state, there's nothing. There's no relief, there's no seeing the links, there's no joy arising, there's just a blank spot. And quite often people misunderstand that and then they say, yeah, I've attained Nibbana. When in fact they actually haven't. So it does take my asking specific kinds of questions. Now I don't know if you've noticed whenever you come in for interview, I ask very specific questions. And the more precisely you can answer those questions, the more I can understand and help you to go deeper with your meditation. But I have to go along with what you're telling me. Sometimes people come in and they say they have one kind of experience and it's another kind. So I'm not going to be 100% correct in saying, congratulations, you've attained Nibbana. You find out for yourself. You find out where an opportunity comes to break a precept. What does your mind do with that? It starts to back away, say, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, this is good. You're not going to have any doubts as to this is a correct path or not. You can't be talked out of it by somebody else because you have the direct experience. You know for yourself that rites and rituals, they don't lead to Nibbana. And you're going to see very clearly that everything, every psychophysical process is part of an impersonal process. There is no self. There is no me. There is no mine. This is just part of a process. And as you see that more and more, your perspectives start to change. Now you start to see things more deeply, more clearly. You look out at nature and you start to see brighter colors. And you start to see how links of dependent origination actually start working. Now, most of the time, I'm just talking from feeling, craving, clinging, habitual tendency, birth, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Most of the time, I'm only talking about that. But as you see it in your daily life, you start understanding it more and more clearly. And that is perspective changing. You start seeing things much more clearly, much less getting caught up in hindrances, and much less getting caught up in breaking a precept. If you do break a precept, you'll go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. No. And it'll come up quite a few times until you forgive yourself for doing it, go to a teacher and tell them, I broke a precept, now I want to take the precepts again. Okay? The teacher knows how to take care of those kind of things. So there's a lot of advantage of having this experience of cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. And we'll get more into that a little bit later, maybe tomorrow. Friend, when this body is bereft of how many states, is it then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log? Friend, when this body is bereft of 3 states, vitality, heat, and consciousness, it is then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log. Friend, what is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, and a monk who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness? Friend, in the case of one who is dead, who has completed his time, his bodily formations have ceased and subsided. His verbal formations have ceased and subsided. His mental formations have ceased and subsided. His vitality is exhausted. His heat has dissipated, and his faculties are fully broken up. In the case of a person who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, his bodily formations have ceased and subsided. His verbal formations have ceased and subsided. His mental formations have ceased and subsided. But his vitality is not exhausted. His heat has not been dissipated. And his faculties become exceptionally clear. So when we're talking about being able to get into this state, this happens when you become an anagami. Okay? The third stage of awakening, where you no longer experience any aversion or lust. Now, when you get into this state, you make a determination how long you're going to sit in this state. And you can sit for up to 7 days. Now, because I've been teaching quite a bit more in Indonesia than I have here, I have students that are anagamis that can sit for long periods of time. They have to write a little note to their family members, because they won't feel any heartbeat, and they won't see that you're not breathing. And they'll get real shook up, and they'll send you to the hospital, and they'll probably pronounce you dead. So you have to leave a little note for them saying, "Don't bug me. I'm fine. Leave me alone." What's the advantage of being able to get into the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness? If you're tired, you can get into this and come out of it in 10 or 15 minutes and you're completely renewed. Your body energy is up, your mental energy is up, you feel a lot of energy. Now, one of the things about being able to experience this is your features become very, very bright. And if you see somebody that has very bright features, it's a good idea to find something to give to them. Even if it's food or water or anything, because their mind is exceptionally pure at that time. And their face is just, radiant. I've had some students that they could walk in a dark room and you can see just from their radiance. And this is true. It's not something I'm making up. Their face becomes absolutely wonderful. And that will last for a period of time and eventually fade away a little bit. But there's real advantage to giving to people that have that pure a mind. Your merit comes back to you very quickly and very strong. There's a story about Sariputta. He sat for 7 days. And then he went out on an alms run. He started walking down one of these little tiny roads, and there was a farmer that was digging up the field. And he saw Sariputta coming in the distance. And this was right about the time that his wife brought his lunch for him, brought his food. And he saw Sariputta, and he donated all the food to Sariputta. And then he told the wife to go get some water, and she offered the water to Sariputta. Then the farmer started going back to work in his field, and he started noticing that it was real hard to dig up the soil, and it had changed colors, turned into gold. And the farmer didn't know what to do. What am I going to do with all this gold? So he went to the king and he said, I have a field with solid gold. And I don't know what to do with the gold, so can you store it for me? Of course the king says yes. And the king had a whole bunch of workers come and fill up carts and take it in, and the people that were picking up the gold started saying that this is the king's gold. And it turned back into dirt. So they started saying that this is his farmer's gold. And the reason that the soil turned into gold was because Sariputta sat in a state that was absolutely pure. There was no fetter arising while he was sitting in that state. And I've asked some rather famous people that could do this. I said, what's the advantage of sitting like that? And they said, relief. Think about it. No consciousness to bother you. Just quiet. Really nice. Something to work for. Not impossible to attain. I had one man in Indonesia that he had never done any meditation at all. So I gave him the instructions in the meditation, and he comes to his first interview. And I said, how long did you sit? And he said, 4 hours. 4 hours. The first time he's ever done any meditation, and he sat for 4 hours. Nobody's supposed to be that good. I wanted to smack him in the back of the head. But he'd gotten into a jhana, and I gave him instructions, and came back the next day. How long did you sit? 11 and a half hours. What? I can't sit that long. How can you sit that long? In 3 days, he had attained Nibbana and become a Sotapanna. In 5 days, he had become an Anagami. Can it happen quickly? Yes, it can. Blows my mind, but who am I? I mean, what the heck? So he went home, and he told his son, he said, why don't we sit in meditation together? And his son said, okay, we'll do that. So they say he sat in meditation with his son. And when he got done with the meditation, he looks around, his son's not there. So he starts looking for his son. I thought we were going to sit in meditation together. Dad, you sat for 4 hours. I could only sit for 2. Okay, so the faculties become exceptionally clear and bright. This is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, and a person who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. Friend, how many conditions are there for the attainment of neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind? Friend, there are 4 conditions for the attainment of neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind. Here, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, a person enters upon and abides in the 4th jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. These are the 4 conditions for the attainment of neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind. Friend, how many conditions are there for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind? That is the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. And this I have real trouble with. I'll explain it in a minute. Friend, there are 2 conditions for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind. Non-attention to all signs, that I can agree with. And attention to the signless element. How can you have attention to a signless element when you don't have consciousness arising? Huh?
Say it again.
Okay. Non-attention to all signs and attention to the signless element. How can you have attention to a signless element if there is no consciousness?
Where did it say that there was no consciousness?
This is signless divi. This is talking about the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness.
To reach cessation. You're not consciousness. I mean, they do.
Cessation means not arising anymore. Right. So, friend, how many conditions are there for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind? There are 3 conditions for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind. Non-attention to all signs, and this says attention to the signless element, which I don't see how that can be, and the prior determination of its duration. In other words, you make a determination when you're going to be coming out of this state. Okay. Friend, how many conditions are there for the emergence of the signless deliverance of mind? Friend, there are 2 conditions for the emergence of the signless deliverance of mind. Attention to all signs and non-attention to the signless elements. These are the two conditions for the emergence from the signless deliverance of mind. Friend, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, immeasurable deliverance of mind is the Brahma Viharas. The deliverance of mind through nothingness, the deliverance of mind through voidness, and the signless deliverance of mind. Are these states different in meaning and different in name? Or are they one in meaning and different in name only? Friend, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, the deliverance of mind through nothingness, the deliverance of mind through voidness, the signless deliverance of mind. There is a way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name, and there is a way in which they are one in meaning and different in name only. What, friend, is the way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name? Here, a person abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Does this start to sound familiar? Likewise the second quarter, likewise the third quarter, likewise the fourth quarter. So above, below, around, and everywhere. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Something about the six directions? And to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. He abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with compassion, or with joy, or with equanimity. Likewise the second quarter, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere. And to all as to himself, he abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with compassion or joy or equanimity. Abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. This is called the immeasurable deliverance of mind. And what, friend, is a deliverance of mind through nothingness? Here, with the complete surmounting of the base of infinite consciousness, aware that there is nothing. When you get to nothingness, you're not looking outside of mind anymore. You're watching mind. A monk enters upon and abides in the base of nothingness with equanimity. So your object of meditation is equanimity. But your mind, there's nothing, no external thing that's going to disturb your mind. This is called the deliverance of mind through nothingness. And what, friend, is the deliverance of mind through voidness? Here a monk gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or an empty hut reflects. This is void of a self, or of what belongs to a self. I think I told you at the start of the retreat, I spent about 6 months with every thought that came up in my mind. Is this mine? Did I ask this to come up? Is that my feeling? Is that my sensation? Now, the more you see the impersonal nature of everything, the more clear your mind becomes. It was a good experience. And you can go pretty deep in your meditation by doing this. But every time a thought comes up, is that mine? I didn't ask it to come up. It came up by itself. Mind just wants to bring up rubbish. Let's let that go. Nothing. Okay, this is called the deliverance of mind through voidness. Now, voidness doesn't mean that there's nothing there. Okay? Voidness means that it's void of states that arose before that, but what's there is seen clearly. And that's voidness. And a lot of people get real confused about what voidness is. Makes me want to go to the sutta that talks about it. But we got to finish this sutta first. And what, friend, is the signless deliverance of mind? Here, with non-attention to all signs, the person enters upon and abides in the signless collectedness of mind. This is called the signless deliverance of mind. And this is the way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name. What, friend, is a way in which these states are one in meaning and different in name only? Lust is a maker of measurement. Hate is a maker of measurement. Delusion is a maker of measurement. Remember what I told you, lust, hatred, and delusion is another way of describing craving. In a monk whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of immeasurable deliverance of mind, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, and void of delusion. In other words, that state of mind is void of craving. Lust is a something. Hate is a something. Delusion is a something. In a monk whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of deliverance of mind through nothingness, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, and void of delusion. no more craving. Lust is a maker of signs. Hate is a maker of signs. Now in Pali, the word for signs is nimitta. Okay? So we'll try it with this way. Lust is a maker of nimittas. Hate is a maker of nimittas. Delusion is a maker of nimittas. In a monk whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with, so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of signless deliverance of mind, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, void of delusion. This is the way in which these states are one in meaning and different in name only. That is what the Venerable Sariputta said. The Venerable Mahakawita and his students were satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Sariputta's words. Now, real quick, we'll go to Sutta number 121. This is a shorter discourse on voidness. Okay? Now, I'm going to go. Okay. I'm going to read a short one for you. Just as the palace of Megara's mother is void of elephants, cattle, horses, and mares, and void of gold and silver, void of the assembly of men and women. The palace that she made was for monks only. So it was void of all of these other things. And there is present only this non-voidness, namely the singleness dependent on the Sangha of monks. So the voidness doesn't mean it's empty of everything. It means it's empty of some things. Not attending to the perception of a village, not attending to the perception of people. A person attends to the singleness dependent on the perception of forest. His mind enters into that perception of forest and acquires confidence, steadiness, and resolution. He understands thus, whatever disturbances there might be dependent on the perception of a village, those are not present here. Whatever disturbance there might be dependent on the perception of people, those are not present here. There's present only this amount of non-voidness. And that is the singleness dependent on the perception of a forest. He understands this field of perception is void of the perception of a village. This field of perception is void of the perception of people. There is only this non-voidness, namely the singleness dependent on the perception of a forest. Thus, he regards it as void of what is not there. but as to what remains, he understands that which is present thus. This is present. Thus, Ananda, this is his genuine, undistorted, pure descent into voidness. So voidness doesn't have anything to do with nothingness.
What this Sutta is saying is that there is the village, there is people, and there is forest, but the meditator is only attending to the end, which is
He's
forest.
going to where they aren't, where the village isn't, where the people are. He's going to the forest. Now he only has the forest as his perception.
So this is different to the meditation pain, which if you attend to it, you can see it, but if you choose not to attend to it, then the experience is void of the meditation pain.
Well, it can be void of the meditation pain depending on how it is handled. Okay? So voidness doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It means it's void of other things. But there's still some stuff that's there. And this goes through all of the jhanas. So you're void of the second jhana when you attain the third jhana. You're void of the third jhana when you attain the fourth jhana, because that's what you're paying attention to at the time. And that goes all the way to the realm of neither perception nor non-perception. Okay? So when you come and tell me that you're void of stuff, I have no idea what you're talking about. You have to be more specific. You're void of what? Okay? And I'm not complaining about Mahayana, but they're the ones that have made it kind of hard to understand, because they have different definitions than the suttas themselves. Okay, let's share some Samaritan. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck at his feet. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation.